You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Bible Guys. We are going to kick off this episode with one of our favorite things that I like to do.
That's right.
Right? Because we are dedicated to giving you great news.
Yes, and now us being, both of us quite gifted athletes in our day.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is a sports edition.
I know that you say that tongue in cheek, but that is true.
It's true. Yeah. So were you?
I was a decent athlete.
Yeah. So
at one time.
Yeah. And so this is a sports edition.
Yes.
Of a news segment, right? So we're doing a sports segment today, and this is incredibly important. We only bring from the finest sources, and of course, we think the finest source of any kind of news on the internet is the Babylon Bee.
Yes.
Right. So,
which is more reliable than most news sources.
Oh, absolutely. You can trust them more. There's more truth in what they write.
Yes.
If you don't know, the Babylon Bee is a satire website. Very, very funny. You should look them up. Anyways, here's what it says. Here's the article today. This is the sports edition. Referees annoyed as football game keeps interrupting their penalty calls.
Which is accurate. It's so good.
Kansas City, Kansas. Referees at a recent Chiefs game were reportedly less than thrilled to find that an NFL football game kept interrupting their penalty calls. According to several refs at the game, the teams of players lining up and trying to move the football across the field, quote, totally messed up their attempts to keep calling random calls in favor of Patrick Mahomes.
That's so good.
I blame the coaches, always trying to get their players to get another play going, said head referee Chut Brand as he adjusted his 1.5-inch thick glasses.
Nice.
We're all busy here trying to invent calls people have never even seen before so that our homie Mahomes can kick butt. But all these loser football players keep getting in the way. Really, really disrespectful. Yes. While fans have tended to take rather dim views of the referee's complaints, one source here referred to as, quote, Matrick Mahomes
That's so good.
to protect his identity, claims that the ref's grievance is completely valid. Wow. At publishing time, NFL referees had decided to teach those upstart players a real lesson by awarding the next 3 games to Mahomes as a penalty for starting a play.
That's so good. Hey, because that was such a quick segment, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Do you believe, I'm a skeptic. I've always said that from the stage.
Yes.
But I truly am a skeptic. I'm not sure people understand just how skeptical my brain actually is.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But when I start to see things that really look fishy and they're hard to believe, I'm absolutely convinced that things happen. When you watch NFL, you're like, there's no way there's a conspiracy.
Right.
There's no way that they're trying to control an outcome. There's no way that Patrick Mahomes will slide, and not cross the end zone. He's going to let the clock run down the last 12 seconds because that would have covered the spread. And by the way, the swing is $1 billion of bets, but he's sliding. He's not going to be on the take for $1 million. Or the referees want Mahomes to win because the Chiefs bring in so much momentum with Taylor Swift and all those kind of things. I am actually convinced that there is some of that going on.
There's favor for the Chiefs and for Mahomes?
Well, not just that. I just think in general,
that the refs are on the take?
I think that there's some of that goes on.
So on an individual basis, perhaps, but I don't think for advantage, but more as a fan.
Okay.
I think it's impossible for refs not to be fans and to have maybe rose-colored glasses for the stars versus the average player, that kind of thing.
Like in their hearts, they want to see Mahomes succeed.
Yeah, they believe he did succeed, right? So I think that there's some of that. But to think that there's a conspiracy behind it, the refs just don't get paid enough money. Yeah. So somebody would have told the world, right? Because they would make more money writing a book about it than they ever will in their careers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if somebody actually broke that in a book or in a news thing, they would be so rich. And they're not. So, man alive, when you have the vice president of the United States turn on a president in 11 days or something during Watergate, and he was offering to protect everybody, right? So you get the most powerful person in the world offering to protect you, and they roll over on him, and then they all go write books later. I think it would happen. Some ref over the 100 and some odd years that football's been going would have exposed it.
Yeah. So Well,
if it was a conspiracy, as opposed to just bias.
Of course, I believe that. I believe that it's going to happen in some ref. That's what you're saying. But I'm saying it's way bigger than that. So, like, for instance, it happened for me last year when it was an unlikely comeback. It was the Chiefs. And I remember, like, they were going to come back, and he was running toward the end zone, and there was nobody around him within like 15 yards. And all he had to do was cross the end zone, but he takes a slide on the 2-yard line when all he had to do was take a knee on the next drive, right, on the next down, right, because he got the first down. And had he just taken 2 more steps, the betting industry would have lost $1 billion.
Well, how many seconds were left in the clock?
Like 12.
Well, that's why. So he doesn't want to score a touchdown and give the ball back to the other team with 12 seconds.
I do understand that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm wrong.
That's a clock management thing there.
Maybe I'm wrong then.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, all I know is
all of our non-football fans are like, "Why are you guys talking about the minutia?"
Oh, that's probably true. That's probably true. Yeah, I guess because we read a football thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually believe that there are conspiracy things.
Okay.
And my wife gets mad at me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that way about...
Chris also has aliens peeking in his window. And,
yeah, I didn't say all that.
Yeah.
But I do think government conspiracies... I mean,
he sleeps with a
I'm not
tinfoil
talking about
hat.
moon landings, but I'm talking about like us being sheep and all that. I sort of buy into a lot of that.
The whole Roman Empire had that idea of give them bread and games.
Right.
Remember that?
Right.
Feed them and give them some entertainment.
Right.
They won't overthrow us. Is that what you're saying?
Coliseum.
So these stadiums are our coliseums?
No,
they're our gladiators.
Not that far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think some of it's rigged. I really do.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, there you go. You have it now. If Chris disappears, it's because he said something. He exposed the NFL now, and somebody's going to catch you in the afternoon, put a hood over your head, and throw you in a white van. You're just going to disappear now.
I did not say anything about Michelle Obama. Let's be clear.
Oh no! No, we just got canceled. We just got shut down.
Hey, I said I did not.
Yes, I know.
I did not. Okay.
Okay. So it's your transition.
Okay. Oh, okay. So speaking of
making good calls.
No. Oh, yeah. That's pretty good. Yeah. Dang it! Why don't you just do it? That was really good. I can't top that.
No, go ahead. No, we're trying to do bad ones.
Speaking of making good calls, Solomon is about to execute a brilliant good call in this scenario, demonstrating how much wisdom he has. Dang it.
There you go. That's a good one.
I blew it.
Good job. No, good.
you. It's you. It's all about you.
It's all about me. Let's be honest.
Yes.
It's you.
Me. You, me. You see the difference? You, me.
If you've never seen Brian Regan's comedy special, I Walked on the Moon,
yes,
you have to watch it.
Yeah, it still holds up.
It still defines a lot of our interaction with each other.
Right.
Okay. Anyways, here we go. Solomon judges wisely in 1 Kings chapter 3, and we're going to start with verse 16. So he's been sitting on the throne. He's doing all kinds of stuff. God gives him wisdom. And then it says, sometime later, 2 prostitutes came to the king to have an argument settled. Please, my lord, one of them began, this woman and I live in the same house. I gave birth to a baby while she was with me in the house. 3 days later, this woman also had a baby. We were alone. There were only 2 of us in the house. But her baby died during the night when she rolled over on it. Then she got up in the night and took my son from beside me while I was asleep. And she laid her dead child in my arms and took mine to sleep beside her. And in the morning when I tried to nurse my son, he was dead. But when I looked more closely in the morning light, I saw that it wasn't my son at all. Then the other woman interrupted. It certainly was your son, and the living child is mine. No, the first woman said, the living child is mine, and the dead one is yours. And so they argued back and forth before the king. Then the king said, let's get the facts straight. Both of you claim the living child is yours, and each says the dead one belongs to the other. All right, bring me a sword. So a sword was brought to the king, and then he said, just cut the living child in 2 and give half to one woman and half to the other. Then the woman who was the real mother of the living child and who loved him very much cried out, oh no, my lord, give her the child. Please don't kill him. But the other woman said, all right, he'll be neither of ours, neither yours nor mine. Divide him between us. And then the king said, do not kill the child, but give him to the woman who wants him to live, for she is his mother. When all Israel heard the king's decision, the people were in awe of the king, for they saw the wisdom God had given him for rendering justice.
Mm.
That's a neat story.
It's also incredibly unorthodox.
Yeah, we're not advising that you keep a sword by your desk.
Yeah, but I mean, what a brilliant, absolutely brilliant thing to do.
Yeah, how do you sort out what's true?
Yeah. So as he's listening to their claims, and back then, there was no footprint on the birth certificate. I'm most likely right. There's no fingerprints. There's no DNA tests. So so back then, I'm sure that this kind of thing probably happened more than we would even care to think about. I mean, there was probably no way for. Think about it. You could probably claim this woman's deranged. She's trying to steal my baby. This is my baby. Yeah. And nobody around you would know the difference.
There's no proof. There's no eyewitnesses.
There's no proof.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, they're going back and forth. And this entire time, Solomon's only thinking, okay, one of these is the real mother. What's a way to discover who the real mother is? So he comes up with this elaborate thing, something that would just draw out the love of a mother. Yeah. It's brilliant.
Yeah. It was fabulous.
Yeah. And so, where's the sermon in here? The sermon in here is that either A, you are going to exercise wisdom and take care of the disputes among your staff and among your church and among your people or your organization, or B, and this is the thing that we all need to hear. If you don't have wisdom, surround yourself with people who have wisdom.
Right.
Because you can see the benefit of wisdom, right?
Oh, man.
The benefit of wisdom here is unbelievable. And to have somebody who is able to discern and execute wisdom, it is a priceless thing that we should never overlook. You have to have somebody around you. If you don't have discernment and wisdom, then surround yourself with somebody who does.
Well, there's so many decisions that are more than just, you read the story and you go, wow, he was so smart and the right lady got the baby.
Yep.
But what you're talking about is the lives of an innocent woman and an innocent child and a kidnapper.
Right.
Right? So an actual crime, an innocent mother, and the whole life of this child. So if this woman, the wrong woman had gotten that baby would have grown up probably in a miserable situation his whole life.
Yeah.
Right?
There would have been resentment and...
Right. Well, wouldn't have never known, perhaps.
Yeah.
Or the other way, she's already a bad person. She's trying to kidnap him and all these things. And so it's more than just the moment that the decision needs to be made. It really has life impacts on three different people. And... instead of her maybe going on and doing more criminal things, we don't know what she did, but she was exposed as a criminal in that moment. There's a lot of these things that the kingdom is better and the lives of his people are better. Innocent people get justice. Guilty people find justice, right? It's more than just a good decision in the moment, right? We could just read the story and go, wow, he's so smart. But
right.
This is a demonstration. This is why his people loved him so much, right? When all Israel heard the king's decision, the people were in awe of the king because they saw the wisdom that God had given him for rendering justice. Now, it's not only this circumstance. People began to believe Solomon has answers.
Right.
It solidified his leadership even more, right? David had several coups. Even his generals sometimes turned against him because they would wonder, man, he's a little reckless. And he was.
Right.
Now, he always landed on top, but he was reckless.
Right.
And now they see this stable thinking, this deep wisdom, and it's one of the things that caused his people to love him deeply. They made significant sacrifices for him because they believed in him. They really trusted him. And so it's the life impact of these women and this baby, but it also affected the entire kingdom where they began to go, oh, wow, we've got a good one. We've got a good king. And, I think we've seen in our nation over the last few presidencies, our nation doesn't have a lot of trust in our leaders.
Right.
And so the whole nation is unstable.
Right.
Right. When there's a lot of trust in a leader, the nations tend to stabilize, right? Because the leader is able to build confidence in the people. And this is what you see in Solomon's reign from here on out. The people sacrifice, the people work extra hard, they give even more of their resources. They're willing to do whatever it takes for the betterment of the kingdom because everything is getting better because they have a great leader. And this is one of those things that establishes that. So I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. So of all the spiritual gifts, wisdom is a spiritual gift, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so there's knowledge, there's wisdom, there's discernment. There's those three.
Yeah.
Right? What is the difference? We've already talked about the difference between knowledge and wisdom. What about discernment?
Yeah, so I maybe misspoke just a little bit yesterday. I lumped wisdom and discernment together. So knowledge is knowing stuff.
Yeah, facts.
Right. It's the lowest on this scale.
Right.
Wisdom is knowing the right thing to do. Discernment is all about the right thing, the right way, with the right people in the right moment.
Now,
Right. It's how, discernment's all about applying wisdom. So discernment has no use apart from wisdom. So that's why wisdom is the principal thing.
So is discernment the one that's connected to God, hearing from God? Is there a God component to discernment that does not exist with wisdom? Because wisdom can be either godly or worldly.
Worldly wisdom, yeah. I think so. I think.
Good question.
As a spiritual gift, certainly. Wisdom is a spiritual gift. I think that all those are God connected as opposed to worldly wisdom and worldly discernment. I think that there are people who are discerning that are able to put two and two together. Usually, highly discerning people have a strong sense of logic, right, which is the science side of it, but then also have this instinct of being able to see through the words being said or the circumstances, right? And there's some people just have that good instinct like that. That's not necessarily the spiritual gift side, but what God does with spiritual gifts is he takes things that would be a normal strength that somebody has, and he says, I'm going to supernaturally enhance that in you. As you all of God's if then promises with Solomon, if you choose to do these things, then I'm going to pour this out on you. And so the discernment side is, in my mind, when you have somebody who has like the gift of prophecy or a word of knowledge, as the Bible say, those have discernment kind of gifts to them that are supernatural.
Yeah. So I've been told in the past, and it's so funny because there are times where you never can rate yourself. Right. Other people have to rate you. Right. It's the same thing when 1
Corinthians chapter 14 says, when it's talking about spiritual gifts, says the prophets are subject to the prophets.
That's right.
Meaning those who have certain gifts are the only ones that can really affirm it in others.
That's right. That's right. And so, if you have the gift of teaching, you recognize the gift of teaching, and then you say, hey, you have the gift of teaching.
I see you're a good teacher.
Yeah, that's right.
Everybody else might say, I like his teaching.
Right.
But somebody with gifted teaching goes, here's why you're a good teacher. This is what makes you a good teacher.
That's right.
I see the potential in you as being a great teacher. Right. I see this gift in you. And so spiritual gifts are often affirmed by, or should be affirmed by, the ones who have those spiritual gifts. Yeah,
which is incredibly wise, and it's a great rule of thumb.
So wisdom is one of those things you can begin to believe maybe God's given you some wisdom, but it's only affirmed in others. Others will affirm it in you.
So here's what I would say. There are times in my life where I've been told by others, and it's been affirmed, where I have wisdom. So it's like, the right thing to do in the moment. I think I have some of that, Now, is it incredibly high? I would say it's on the higher end, maybe. I don't think it's as high as some. But then there are times in my life where, again, this is just where the weird part falls in. But there are times where I think I have good discernment. But I think that there have been other areas of my life where there's a gaping hole. I think that's the part that lacks discernment. So I've been told by others who tell us, hey man, you get good knowledge, you demonstrate great wisdom in a lot of ways, but there are times in your life where you lack discernment. And I think that is true for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why.
Well, we can have competing things that can challenge even the spiritual gifts we have sometimes, right? So it's I can see that, I think, in all of us and everybody that has. So if I ever take spiritual gifts test, wisdom and discernment both come in my top 5, right? So those are both there. And but I also found myself making dumb decisions, and then later on look back and go, I knew better than that.
Right.
But I had I was chasing my heart. I was doing something where I had some kind of competing thing working against me in the moment. And I wound up making a dumb decision. That didn't mean I don't have wisdom and discernment. It just meant in that moment, I didn't surrender to it. I surrendered to another part of my life that pulled me away from wisdom and discernment, which is the dichotomy of Solomon's life.
Right.
He has the most wisdom of anybody in history, and yet he chooses to marry 1,000 women and follows after and begins to make, temples for their gods. What?
Yeah.
How does he do that?
I'm always careful to point out.
He followed his heart.
Right. He followed his heart, right? And he's the one that says,
don't follow your heart.
Don't follow your heart. Guard your heart.
Yeah.
Right?
So he was wise enough to warn us, and then he did it.
Right. Don't do what I do.
Yeah. So it's possible to be a godly person to know the right answer and still not do it.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I'm always careful to point out that nobody will ever be wiser than Solomon, because that's what God says.
That's right.
God says nobody. I'm going to give you wisdom, and nobody has been more wise or ever will be. So it's like, wow, what a claim.
Yeah.
So thousands of years ago, he's like,
right.
The billions of people that are going to come and go on this earth. This is it. This is the pinnacle. You're looking at it.
You mentioned surround yourself with people with wisdom and discernment. And I'll tell you a very, very quick story. I had a number of years ago an attempted coup in my leadership from a young leader that I was trying to develop. There was a significant confrontation. He had been doing a bunch of things behind the scenes to pull away a lot of the top leaders and the best leaders. But it was all secret.
What's his name?
I'm not going to say his name.
Abinijah?
Yeah. Adonijah? Yeah. Absalom. Yeah.
Absalom, yeah. It's one of those.
Yeah. So some great key leaders, people that I love deeply, turned on me very, very hard based on his accusations of this confrontation we had. So we were we meet with the elders, and we're going to have this meeting with these families, and I had a friend that I've always felt had some wisdom and discernment. I have friends who go, why is he your friend? Right? And I'm always like, this guy has a wisdom and a discernment that I don't know that I have. He calls me right before this gathering, and he goes, I've had a few conversations with these people. Nothing has actually been said. I have a sense, and I feel like maybe the Lord is causing me to discern, there's a recording. Be very careful what you say. So my wife and I pray about it. We met with a couple of the elders, and we prayed about this. God, give us wisdom and discernment in this moment. Help us not to say the wrong things. Bring to remembrance the conversation. Help us to be humble. We go into the meeting. About 10 minutes into the meeting, they start asking very precise questions when I'm talking in general things, because the event happened in the past, right? So we're about 15, 20 minutes in, and the Lord just said, there is a recording. And I said, well, let me pause before I answer that question. Is there a recording? And if there is, have you heard it? And the room went dead. And they got red in the face. Nobody wanted to answer. It was 45 seconds of silence. And finally, the guy who was coming after me the hardest said, yes, there is a recording. I have heard it. I went, oh, okay. So this is an entrapment meeting, right? It pivoted. So my entire board wasn't sure, because we trusted those other great leaders. Mm-hmm. My entire board immediately came over to my side.
Yep.
And it established, and this was early in my leadership at Heritage Church, came over, and it was because of my friend who has this discernment that I don't have. I have discernment, but not on his level. And he rescued me and rescued our leadership and I believe the church in general. And that's the value of having somebody with a spiritual gift of wisdom and discernment, in your life.
That's great.
So I was in pain. So I also have wisdom and discernment.
Yep.
Right? That's been affirmed many, many times. But I was in pain.
Yep.
And I was a little fearful.
Yep.
In this, I wasn't at my peak performance.
Right.
But I was surrounded with people who do have wisdom and discernment that could speak into my life, and I trusted them in the moment. And then because I had an awareness, maybe there's something out there, then I treaded lightly and then discovered there was, and it rescued us. And so there's tremendous wisdom in hanging out with people with wisdom, and then having friends that have discernment and those kinds of things. And the only way that you can prove those is by the proof of their life.
Right. Yep.
So you don't just automatically assume, wow, they said a smart thing, that must be true. What I see as a trajectory of this guy's life, in at least my experience with him, is he continues to grow in wisdom and in discernment and in following God and leaning into his words. And he brought me several scriptures in that same conversation to say, be strong and courageous, and then also to a soft answer turns away wrath. He brought me a few verses that he just felt like God was telling him in that moment. So he affirmed his own wisdom and discernment with scripture in my life, and it wound up being true.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's
Isn't
a
that
great
powerful?
story. Yeah, it's really powerful. Yeah. Well, hey, let that be a lesson for all of us, right?
You need wise people in your life.
Wise people in your life, and let's listen to them even when we don't feel like we understand it fully. Just trust in the gift.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, hey, that's our time. So we will see you next time on the Bible Guys.